In the words of my favorite space pirate smuggler, hello, hello, my friends. Today, I'll be walking you through your first assignment, which is a project on how the technology of the Industrial Revolution changed our lives. Like most motion pictures, it has been modified from its original format to fit your screen, that is to say, online learning. In terms of the order of things, first, we're going to go over the learning targets that this assignment hits. Second, we're going to explain what you're expected to be able to do by the end of this project. Third, we're going to cover some basic background information so you understand the context, that is to say, historical situation that surrounds the time period this project focuses on. And last, we're going to walk through the instruction sheet posted in Empower and look at some examples so you understand what to do and what's expected of you. This particular project hits 2 learning targets at the 3.0 level. If you earn below a 3.0 on either of these targets, you will be required to redo the assignment and turn it in. A key thing there is that you're asked to fix it, not start over. Take what you've got and raise it to the level it needs to be, don't scrap it, and begin from nothing. The first of these 2 learning targets is research and explain the impact and development of major scientific and technological innovations in the industrial age, space age, and digital age. A key piece of this learning target requires you to research and explain. Both of those you'll be doing over the course of this project. The second learning target is CE1. Analyze continuity and change in eras over U.S. history from 1877 to the present. This learning target asks you to describe how things stay the same over time, but also change. So we have a couple of goals for this assignment. The first is that learners will be able to use appropriate internet research techniques to investigate and research student-selected inventions of the Industrial Revolution. You can see where this ties into that first learning target, where it requires you to research things on the internet. The second goal is that learners will be able to sequence the technological innovations of the Industrial Revolution in the order that they were developed or invented. This timeline sort of structure allows you to measure and explain continuity and change over time, which is that second learning target. The third goal is that learners will be able to explain the importance and impact of each selected technological innovation by explaining how that invention created lasting change. This really ties into both targets because the first target required you to explain the role of technology, and the second really required you to explain change. So this piece is key to getting credit on both learning targets. Before digging into the project and its requirements, let's dig into some important ideas and background information. First, what does revolution mean? What does it mean if we describe something as revolutionary? Take about 15 seconds and think to yourself. All right, well, after 15 kind of awkward seconds of silence and thinking to yourself, here's my answer for you. Revolution is a change so big, so permanent, there's no going back to the way that things were before that change. In this way, I would not describe the iPhone 11 as revolutionary, despite what marketing might try to convince you, because it's not that big of a change from, say, the iPhone 10 or the iPhone 9. This is in contrast to, say, something like fire or the wheel. Humanity is truly transformed by the discovery of fire and the fact that it can keep us warm in different places, cook our food, or the wheel, which allowed us to transport heavy things over long distances. These pieces of technology, and technology they were for the time, truly transformed our lives in the way that the iPhone 11 just doesn't compared to the iPhone 10. So this lesson focuses on the Industrial Revolution and how new technology and inventions changed our lives forever. The question that I pose to you is, what is industry? Spoiler, it's another name for factory. So basically, somewhere that makes something in large amounts. Anytime you see the word industry, industrial, industrialization, you should think of this picture. It shows a factory. So, follow me here. I'm going to sound crazy, but if industry is another word for factories, industrialization means the growth and spreading of factories. To industrialize then means to develop factories, allowing things to be made quicker. You can start to see a relationship between these words. If you know what industry means, you can figure out or infer what industrialization or industrialize means. So it looks something like this. Going from open space, farmland, to large factories in cities. Now, I know that I sound kind of crazy here, right? I got my tinfoil hat and I sound nuts, but the truth is, if you open a book, it's written all over. So this leads us to our conclusion. What was the Industrial Revolution? Answer. The growth and spreading of factories changed our lives so much we could never go back to the way life was before the new technology and factories came into being. This is what your project is all about. It's the shift from things being made by hand, one, by an individual person, to things being made in large quantity on machines or in factories. There are some distinct advantages to this. For instance, it's a lot faster, and also when things are made by hand, they aren't quite exact, right? It's unique to the person who made it. Machines tend to produce things that are the exact same and at a much higher speed. You probably have a lot of questions about what you're doing and how to do it. So here we go. The purpose of this particular assignment is that students will investigate or research and sequence, that is to say put in order, and explain the significance and impact, that is why it's important or the effect of technological developments during the Industrial Revolution to meet the required technology learning target. A common question that comes up in normal times is, can I do this project with a partner? No. This is a project, like most assignments that you're going to have in my class this year, that must be completed on your own. It's one of those things where this year is going to require some changes, and this is one of the places those changes occur. Some key information about this project. When is the project due? Excellent question. At the beginning of class, Tuesday, September 8th, or Wednesday, September 9th, depending on when I see you. On the days listed, we will move to the next assignment. You might notice that Wednesday, September 9th is listed. I'm assuming that we have Monday, September 7th off for Labor Day. I could be wrong, and we may have to make some adjustments. So, who should you create this project for, and who is your audience? You should always be mindful of why you're creating something or who you're creating it for, because it can shape how you do something. In this case, you're going to be making this for someone who has only a basic understanding of your selected technology from the Industrial Revolution. Treat your audience like a younger sibling to whom you are explaining something new. Don't assume that I, the teacher, know you know something. Please explain everything clearly and fully. So directions and step for completion. At this stage, we're going to switch to the assignment sheet that you can find in Empower so you can see where everything is. Normally, we would go over these things some way in a PowerPoint and as a group, but new world, new rules. One important thing before we switch, make sure that you follow all steps in the order listed and read them fully. There's lots of tips and things that are in there to help you out a little bit. All right, we're going to go on ahead and switch. And this particular assignment sheet can be found in Empower. You can see the title up here, Online Industrial Revolution Technology Timeline. This project has had to undergo some changes from what it previously was in the years past. You'll find here that the purpose, the individual partners, the due date, the intended audience, all those things we just talked about appear right here in this first box. The second box includes some other things that we talked about. What are the 2 learning targets you're earning credit on? What are the goals for this assignment? But where we're going to turn our attention is down here to the format. In this case, this tells you what you're producing. The instructions that I've given you is that students will create a 10-slide digital timeline using Google Slides. The timeline will correctly put the chosen inventions in the order invented and, in 1 to 2 sentences, explain and demonstrate the importance and value of each piece of technology by explaining how the invention created lasting change in people's lives. In doing this, you want to begin with step 1, listed here. You're going to select 8 pieces of technology that you want to include in your timeline. Below is a list of technological innovations from the Industrial Revolution. You're free to select any 8 on this list. The only catch, they have to be on this list. These will be your events on your timeline. You're only required to do 8, and doing more will not raise your overall score. Some students think that if I do 10 or 12 instead of 8, you might get a 3.5 or a 4, and that's just not how grading in my class works. I'll show you how to get those scores in a little bit. So once you've selected your 8 pieces of technology, you're going to move on to step 2. This is where you start your timeline, specifically your first slide. First thing you're going to do is go to your drive and open Google Slides. The second thing is that you're going to title the document with your first and last name, the title of the assignment, and your class period in the text box in the upper left-hand corner of the page. For example, if I were titling mine, it would be Tim Polano, Industrial Revolution Timeline, Period 1. The third thing you're going to do is start your first slide. Begin by typing the name of the assignment, Industrial Revolution Timeline, using bold Times New Roman 60 font and front and center it. You can see what this looks like here in purple. I've taken it, put it in that size, boldened it so it looks really clear, and put it in the center of the slide. Skip one line, you can see that there's some space here, and put your first and last name in Times New Roman size 44 font, centered also on the slide. So you can see an empty space and slightly smaller type there. For the fifth thing, you're going to skip a line again. You can see this space here. And in Times New Roman size 32 font, you're going to write your period number and center that as well. This whole slide represents an example of what your first slide should look like. You are totally free to select whatever color background and color text you want. The size and type is specified for you. Once you're done with your introductory slide, you're going to move to step 3, and this is where you create your second slide, or the table of contents. To do this, you're going to add a new slide, and towards the top of the slide, type Table of Contents in size 60 Times New Roman font. You're also going to center this and make it appear towards the top of the slide. You can see that I've done that here in yellow. You're going to skip one line. You can see that space here. And you're going to type the name of each invention that you chose from step 1. You should have a total of 8. These should be in Times New Roman size 32 font. The color writing and background are totally up to you to choose. In this case, I've chosen to do these slides in red and yellow. The fourth thing you're going to do is conduct internet research and write the year that each invention was invented or created on the right-hand side of the invention's name. You can kind of see that I've done this down here, but we'll talk about what this turns into at the end. The fifth thing you're going to do is rearrange and put all the inventions in order from the first made, which will be at the top of the list, to the most recent, which is the bottom of the list. You can see where originally I just typed in the inventions that I chose, and then once I had researched and found the dates, I put them in order. Please note that these dates are fake, and that you would need to do research to find the real dates, so please don't copy them down. FYI, they're the opening dates of some of my favorite rides in Disney World, which is how you know that they're from the wrong time period. They're about 100 years off. Once you have put them in order, you can see here that I put 1955, which is the earliest at top, and 2019 at the bottom. You're going to number them on the left-hand side. So you can see I put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. This is your table of contents and really becomes your guide telling you what slide you're going to do in what order. Once you've put all of the inventions in the slide on order, you're going to move on to the next slide. There is an example of what this process should look like at the end down here on the right-hand side. Please make sure that you are doing research for the appropriate version of the invention as well. For example, there are multiple versions of the steam engine. Just pick one and be consistent. This puts you on to step 4. You're going to complete a slide for each invention by matching the order listed in your table of contents. So what that means is that here, my next slide is going to be about the cotton gin, and then the diesel engine, and so on and so forth. So for each of these, you're going to add a new slide and put the name of the invention and the year that it was invented in the top of the slide in size 60 Times New Roman font. Again, the color and text background is totally up to you. The third thing you're going to do is do research and find the name of the inventor. If you find multiple inventors, which is a common problem, list either the one that is most frequent or that matches the year you listed. For instance, if you said that the steam engine was created in 1763, look up the inventor who invented it in 1763. The fourth thing you're going to do is move one line down, and this time you're not going to skip. I'll show you what this looks like in a minute, and you're going to type the name of the inventor in Times New Roman size 32 font. You're going to do an image search next and insert either a schematic or a diagram. I'll show you what those look like here in a moment. Please do not insert either a photograph or a painting of the invention. When you're searching for images, use the word diagram or schematic, spelled for you here, to find the correct type of image. I'll include some examples of schematics and diagrams later so that you can see the difference. For example, you might do an image search for steamship schematic. It should show or list all the parts of the invention. If you are getting a lot of different things and aren't sure which is right, try adding the name of the inventor to your search. For example, Robert Fulton steamboat diagram. Making your search specific like this should pull up what you're looking for. Parts do not need to be labeled on your image, but it is nice. I'm going to skip down here for a minute so that you can see what we're talking about. Here on the left-hand side, you're seeing an example of what an acceptable schematic or diagram looks like. You'll see that all the parts are visible, and they are sometimes labeled. You can look here in the box and see that this image was found using a Google image search using this exact search. Telegraph diagram parts labeled. This came up. On the other side here, this is what a completed slide for each invention will look like. We'll come back to this in a minute, but previously we talked about how you're putting the name of the invention in year in size 60 font at the top, and you're not skipping a line, but just going down a line and inserting the name of the inventor. You can see here that I've also included a diagram or schematic of a steamship. This is the 1807 version by Robert Fulton. You want to be careful here because there's a lot of different steamship schematics. But what sets Fulton's apart is this wheel here that turns and catches the water. So, what I will tell you is that this year is actually correct. If you're doing the steamship, I just gave you a freebie. I'm going to go on ahead and go back up so that we can talk about these other things before we talk about what that slide should look like in the end. You're going to move where you're typing from the center of the page to the left side of the page, and underneath the picture in Times New Roman, about size 24, write one sentence that explains what the invention does. For example, if I was doing a slide on the steamship, I would say, quote, "The steamship is a type of water transportation that uses steam as a power source to move the ship forward." It's a simple one-sentence explanation that explains what the invention does. You're not going to skip a line, but you are going to go down. You're going to keep typing and explain in 1 to 2 sentences why this invention was important or how it permanently changed our lives. If doing a slide on the steamship, here's an example of what this might look like. The steamship changed our lives because transportation and trade became faster and more efficient. People and trade goods could now move upriver instead of only being able to sail downriver with the current. With these 3 sentences, I've done a great job explaining what the invention is and why it's important. If you recall, that hits those 2 learning targets about explaining technology's impact and explaining continuity and change over time. So you can see what a completed slide looks like here. Underneath the image are those exact sentences we just talked about. 1 sentence explaining what the steamship is, and 1 to 2 sentences, in this case 2, explaining why the steamship is important. You'll notice that this slide is a little bit different if you're trying to earn a 3.5 or a 4. This only shows what a 3 looks like. I'm going to bounce back up for just a moment, and we'll talk about what a 3.5 and a 4 looks like for those of you who are interested. For those seeking a 3.5 or a 4, you're going to skip 1 line, and you're going to write an additional 1 to 4 sentences. You might need to shrink the font to fit it all, and that's okay. You're going to put this underneath the impact of the invention. So basically you're doing everything you've done before, but you're just going to tag a little bit of extra on. You'll notice that the directions are very clear here. You're going to explain at least one of the things listed below per slide to earn a 3.5. Explaining any 2 of the 3 per slide will earn you a 4.0. Here are 3 things that you can do to demonstrate that you understand this technology on a deeper level. The first, you could answer, is this piece of technology still used today? And if it is, how has it changed? And if not, why is it obsolete or no longer used? The second thing that you might want to talk about, what are some major improvements or changes that were made to this invention over time, including the present? And your third option, what role does this piece of technology play in the shift towards automation? And how does automation shape our lives today? Automation is a fancy way of saying making things automatic. So again, if you were to do any one of those per slide, and it could be a different one, you would earn a 3.5. If you were to do any two of the three, and again, it doesn't have to be the same two, different slides can be different too, you can earn a 4.0. That's why this slide is only an example of a 3. It doesn't include any of that extra level of thinking that earns you that higher score. So once you've completed all 8 slides for your invention, right, you've got your title slide, you've got your table of contents, and you've done your 5 invention slides, you're going to move to step 5. This is where you check your timeline and self-assess before you submit it to me. So once you've completed all 10 required slides in Google Slides, please check the format. Does it match those provided in the pictures we just went through? Before the final step, that is to say submission, please look at the scoring guide that's listed below and compare your work to its descriptions. If your work does not meet the minimum description for at least a 3.0, you'll receive a 2.0 and be required to revise your work to raise it back to a 3. Ideally, you check this before you submit it so you know that your work is going to earn the score that you're aiming for. You'll notice that in this case, the rubric, the items are listed on the left for what you're aiming for in terms of the learning target. In this case, we talked about how research is a key piece of this first HS1 learning target. In order to earn a 3, the student's timeline demonstrates adequate research techniques by containing 2 or fewer errors in information, including incorrect dates, inventor, or images. Basically, this is just saying when you did internet research, did you find the right things? For that reason, it's impossible to get a 4 in this category because your information is either right or it's wrong. There's no way to give you a 4 on that. So the second part of this learning target, which deals with explaining the development and impact of scientific and technological innovations, this is what a 3 looks like. The student's timeline accurately explains both what the invention did and how it impacted or changed our lives. This is why you're asked to do this for each invention. This is also where you can earn a slightly higher score. You can see that for the 4, and the 3.5 is mentioned in there as well, students' timeline demonstrates a deeper understanding of industrial technology's impact by explaining how to use this technology has changed or why it's obsolete, major improvements that have made the invention more efficient and illustrate change over time, and the role the technology has played in automation. I again specify that explaining one thing per slide equates to a 3.5, and 2 or more is a 4.0. We're into that other learning target here, which is analyzing continuity and change. Basically, to earn a 3, the student's timeline accurately and completely sequences events or explains how the technology changed over time during the Industrial Revolution. So you basically need to do both of those things. Put them in the right order and explain the change that occurs, which again, if you're following the directions fully, you're going to do those things. This is another one that I can't really give you a 4 on. They're either in the right order or they're not, and you explain it or you don't. So really, the heavy lifting that gets you the 3, 5, or the 4 is focused in this box here. I don't believe in going over the 2 criteria because I don't want you to get a 2. I want you to understand what you have to do to get a passing score, and that's all. So the final thing that you're going to do, submit your completed project through Empower. Through the Actions tab, you're going to upload your slides from the Google Drive. Please double check that the title of the document has your first and last name, the title of the assignment, which is Industrial Revolution Timeline, and your class period. Again, here's an example. Tim Polano, Industrial Revolution Timeline, Period 1. Congratulations, you're done with this one. You are free to move on to the next assignment as soon as you're done with this one, but I am building these assignments as I go. You're free to move at your own pace so long as there's an assignment available. If you have any questions, please talk to me in class, shoot me a message in Empower, or email me at tpolano@mywps.org. Again, that's tpulano@mywps.org. I look forward to seeing you for our next assignment, which will deal with the weapons of World War I and continue with that first learning target that deals with science and technology and how it impacts history.